Assalamu alaikum and greetings of peace. My name is Yusuf Ismail and the program you're watching is I Beg to Differ. This program focuses on interactive debate on socio-economic, political, cultural and religious issues affecting us as South Africans. And certainly looking, unpacking, exploring and examining some of the global dominant trends in the international community. The Quranic injunction in Surah 16 verse 25 is invite all to the way of thy Lord with wisdom and beautiful preaching and reason with them in the ways that are best and most gracious. But certainly take into account the fact that today we live in a multicultural society, we live in a pluralistic society, and by and large South Africa is indeed a secular country where religion very much takes second fiddle. And if in fact religious individuals have any meaningful role to play in society, that role is essentially relegated to one of essential relativism. How do we then operate within this framework of secular humanism, of atheism that is enveloping our students and our schools and our tertiary institutions? We're going to be exploring that this evening. And joining me to discuss this is a friend of mine, an associate who has been with us before on the show, Dr. Tawfiq Aboyemi. Dr. Tawfiq, assalamu alaikum, good evening, and welcome again to I Beg to Differ.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, Yusuf.
Now, Dr. Tawfiq, personally, you've just attained your PhD in, as I understand it, recently at the DUT. You are an academic and a researcher at the Durban University of Technology, but more importantly, you are affiliated with many Islamic organizations and movements, and you actively involve yourself, and I've seen it personally, engaging in dawah, what we can call dawah, and interacting with students, and of course the social fabric of the society that you obviously are based in. Tell us a bit about that and your role and how you came to be involved in this particular field.
Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. All praises, glorification belongs to Allah. The best of speech is the one that has to do with inviting to the way of Allah. God has created us, all of us, whether you're black, whether you're Indian, whether you're German, wherever you are, God has created us. We came out from the same source, which is Adam. So we are brothers and sisters. And whatever good thing I'm doing to a brother, I'm doing it to myself. Whatever bad thing I'm doing to another brother, I'm doing it to myself. That is the basis of everything we do in this world. We want a very peaceful society where crime is reduced to the barest minimum. We want peaceful coexistence between people, between cultures, and there's need for us to always dialogue, calling one another to what is good and making us move away from what is bad.
Now have you been always Muslim, or you were coming from a Christian background?
I was born a Muslim, but that is not enough. For every average Muslims, just being born into a Muslim is not enough.
It's not sufficient, certainly.
You need to interrogate. You need to make research. Why Islam? Why not other religions? We've got as many as you can count religions in the world today. And we believe that God is one. God is not an author of confusion. Why does he allow someone to be taking water stream as God? Some are taking fire as God. Some are taking stone. Some are taking cow as God. So you need to interrogate yourself.
Interrogate yourself in terms of finding and identifying who God really is. Now coupled with that, obviously, comes, I would say, certain disclaimers. I mean, the one thing which is quite evident, you obviously are from Nigeria, and certainly one thing which permeates the so-called Muslim world is this kind of so-called threat of extremism that affects us. And one of the arguments, whether it's Somalia, whether it's in Mali, whether it's in Nigeria, you've got, for example, the so-called phenomenon, which I want to bring up, things like Boko Haram. You've got Al-Shabaab in Mogadishu. You've got the so-called AQI, Al-Qaeda in Africa, in Mali. That same AQI was backed by the US government in Libya when they were deposing Gaddafi. How do you basically operate, or can you in fact operate within a vacuum of calling people to the truth and obviously to the oneness of God when you are faced with all these kind of, every step that you've got this kind of perpetual bulwarks that you have to overcome in terms of being in a position to the extent that sometimes you're forced to become in a position where you become inherently apologetic in terms of what is happening around you.
That's what I've mentioned earlier. You see, there's need for each and every one of us to interrogate ourselves and to know who God is. And any religion, what itself, being called a religion, we've got scriptures. What is the instruction from God on every issue?
So in other words, making a distinction between the faith itself, the scriptural authority, and of course the behavior of its adherents.
Yeah, the behavior of majority might conflict or contradict with the teachings. So that's why if you see someone claiming to be an adherent of a faith and is doing certain thing, you have to fact check and cross check. Is that what the faith teaches him to do?
Now I see you, and I see you in a sense a very good embodiment of the faith. I saw your graduation when you were awarded your PhD, your doctoral thesis. I'm not so sure what your doctorate was in. We can probably interrogate that later. But when you at the graduating ceremony, you made a telling point. Symbolically, you made the sujood, the prostration, on the actual stage, and that video became somewhat viral. In your interaction with your colleagues, and you obviously your those underneath you who are basically students that you may be teaching and so on, do you see this manifestation of Islam permeating your interaction with them in terms of your communication with them and in terms of how you embody your faith?
Yeah, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when Aisha was asked, she said Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is an embodiment of the faith. He walk his talk. You can see Islam in him. We are not perfect, we are all human beings, but we want to go out of our way most of the time to see that we adhere to the teachings. It is not just mere worshipping of Allah by observing your namaz that shows that you're a Muslim. It should show in your character, the way you behave, the way you react, the way you interact with people of different faiths.
Muslims don't have a particularly good reputation globally in terms of certain actions, and I mean obviously there's Islamophobic stereotypes. But let's limit it to the South African context. Do you see, I mean, now certainly traditionally you had the Malay, Cape Malay in Cape Town, you had the Indian Muslims which were a significant majority, but now of course with the foreign influence and influx and the opening of the borders in South Africa, vast majority of people from Africa, a lot of them coming to our country happen to be of the Muslim faith. Do you see a situation whereby these communities operate very much in isolation with each other?
I think there are a lot of effort to bring the communities together, though that cannot be achieved 100%. There are still some people that believe in their own orientation, their own akida, this how do we do things. But effort are in place and they are yielding fruit to bring a lot. The ulamas are trying to come together. Let's have a common focus, let's have a common reasoning. But all good and said. You see, this issue of religion, I said it's not only reading namaz that is your religion. Let it show in your character, in your behavior.
Is it not showing in the character? Is it not showing in the character of the majority of people?
That is how we are being perceived. And of course, some of our behaviors might be lending credence to that. You understand? While I was studying, being part and parcel of the Dawa team of IPCI, and what do? We move around, we share the word of God with people, especially non-Muslims, including Muslims that are not probably practicing the religion. So we feel that it is necessary for us to engage, peacefully engage people, let them learn what this religion of Islam is. There are a lot of misconceptions, and that is even the issue of this Islamophobia that we are talking about. We are being painted with the terrorism brush, and mark you, uprisings are just painted with religious coloration. Majority of them are political. It is just that they needed something that can easily move people, that can attach sentiment and emotions, which is what you can find in every faith.
Well, what would be some of the challenges you face within the religious leadership in the South African context?
Well, I've mentioned that you can't expect an 100% score. The moment you are more than 1, 2, 3 in any group, You've got diverse opinion. You've got diverse opinion.
Is religious conservatism a problem? Religious conservatism, to the extent where the orthodoxy that people have seen from the Indo-Pakistani subcontinent has somehow or the other immersed itself into the South African life within the religious context. And the problems that were so much inherent in the subcontinent now are imported in our context, totally divorced from the context in which those problems originated from.
Yeah, it's like this technology that we are using. During the time of the Prophet ﷺ, they are using camels, donkeys to travel for Hajj. No one's using that the same means of transportation now, right? So when technology and circumstances change, we need to reason, provided the solutions we are trying to be providing doesn't conflict and contradict with the teachings. I don't see anything wrong about that. Previously, no one is sharing, making dawah with WhatsApp, no one is doing dawah with Facebook. But you don't condemn doing dawah with Facebook. You don't condemn doing dawah on YouTube. Most of your debate, most of your presentation are on YouTube now for people to learn. It's like opening up barriers. Well, so if people are still rigid as in not want to change, we can't catch up with the realities on ground. Provided those solutions that we are providing are not touching the hand of our teachers or of the Sharia. I think there's nothing wrong about that.
In terms of the ideal starting point, and you've been in what we would call the so-called street dawah campaigns, what do they entail?
The street dawah campaign that I'm involved in with IPCI and some other organization is that we want to engage people, we want to spread peace, spread love among people. We are all human beings. We came from the same source. Even if you are not of my faith, it doesn't mean I should hate you. No hatred. Islam doesn't preach hatred. It doesn't preach violence. Peaceful coexistence. Your character, dignity, humility.
The equality between us as individual
Thank you very
human
much.
beings.
And that is what is also in our every namaz that we pray. The Muslims are lining up. You see the Malawian, you see the Indian, you see the Nigerian, you see the Turkish. We line up brothers, shoulder to shoulder.
Sure.
That is the best democracy you can ever talk about. There is no phobia. All human beings are one.
Are one, basically, essentially one. Chapter 49, verse 13 says the same point.
It's our skin that differs. As now what God will check on the day of resurrection. It's not your skin. But what did you do? What good things did you do in this world? Remember, if you kill a person, you take a soul, it's like you taking the entire mankind.
And you save the soul. It says if you save the soul of the whole of humanity. Well, hold that thought, Doctor. We're going to be going for an ad break, and when we're back, we'll continue this discussion in terms of defining the role and the implications of dawah and what it means to be a da'i or propagator in 21st century South Africa. Welcome back to I Beg to Differ, and if you just joined us, we are in conversation with Dr. Tawfiq Aboyemi, who is basically an academic at the Durban University of Technology and is also involved in his own personal capacity, engaging in religious missionary work and missionary activity, and we're going to explore some of the issues around that. Doctor, as a kind of a starting point, certainly you've alluded to the issue of street dawah, what it entails, and what is engaged. What are some of the challenges that you face or are faced with when, in fact, coming across people or communicating with individuals? Because sometimes, somehow or the other, that is indeed a kind of a challenge. How do you approach people? How do you speak to them? I mean, if you want to basically share issues of faith, it can be viewed as somewhat confrontational in certain instances. That's a challenge we face.
Yeah. Some of the issues or challenges has to do with rejection.
Rejection of what?
Rejection of what you even want to discuss with them. Saying the faith, Islam, some reject immediately because probably they have been brainwashed or they've gotten a lot of misconceptions about the religion. And we can't just fold our arms. We can't fold our arms. We still need to continue to make effort to see that we correct most of these misconceptions. Islam is a religion of peace. And we have to make it peaceful. We have to appear peaceful to people.
Now, we've had you previously on one of our shows on xenophobia that we've dealt and recorded with you in the past. How does, the thing which I find problematic is that a lot of Islamic organizations, mosques, when discussing what dawah is, operate within a vacuum, not taking into account the socio-economic situation in the country, the challenges that individuals face, and of course the inherent problems that may be causing the level of violence and hatred and anger that we see in society. Is that a problem that you see? I mean, you go to the mosque, what you hear, and now of course people are talking about what's happening, but in many mosques you have had the situation in the past, and I would argue even to a certain extent now, where a lot of the imams speak, give the khutbah, give the lecture, totally divorced and isolated from what is happening around them in the community.
Yeah, whatever sermon you are doing should talk to happiness. People should learn and adjust their ways for the good. Of only know themselves.
Do you see that happening?
It's happening, but it might not be every time. So the ulama still need to buckle up and address issues, contemporary issues that are affecting the immediate community.
Are the ulama part of the problem?
Well, most of them mount the stand for the utubah on Fridays. They give sermon, most of them. So you've got to address issues like the issue of xenophobia we are talking about. Those are places of worship that people are bound to listen to.
Okay, you've been to the mosques. You were there in the mosque on Friday. I mean, during the outbreak of the xenophobic violence, was there discussion on the xenophobic violence?
It was not mentioned.
Was not mentioned. I mean, is that not shocking to you?
Well, that's what I've said. It's not in all masjid that it might be mentioned. Some masjid, they have gotten their own programs, what they are talking about, maybe it's a series or whatever, that may probably don't need to break it or whatever. Or some of them might have recordings and post it on their website, on their YouTube, share it on WhatsApp. So it might not be necessarily in some masjid mentioned. But above all, it is our responsibility. We don't shy away from it. The Muslim community is an ummah. We should address how we relate and address people. What is our behavior? What is our perception of what is happening at whatever point in time? National event, socio-economic issues, what are our responses and how are we supposed to react? And as I've mentioned that if you're a Muslim and you have been involved in Afrophobic or xenophobic activities, it degrades, it belittles your Islam.
Belittles your faith.
It belittles your faith completely because all Afrophobic, all xenophobic activities has been abandoned, demolished by the Prophet ﷺ.
And that's something we should actually be at the forefront of leading society against the kind of violence, against the socioeconomic injustices that we see, against the kind of the poor leadership that we have. The problem I have is that many times, a lot of these organizations, mosques and committees, are at the forefront of giving platforms to corrupt politicians and corrupt leaders to address the community. Don't you see that as a kind of a contradiction of the essence of the message of your faith?
Obviously it's a contradiction.
But it's very common, it's happening all the time.
Obviously it's a contradiction, but the Muslims are the best example.
Well, let put it that should be the best example, not are the best example, should be the best example. I think that's a disclaimer we need to make, because they are currently not necessarily the best example.
See, you can't get 100% in everything. That is the injunction. That is the directive given to you. You call yourself a Muslim, you should be the best example in everything. Don't support corruption. Don't support wrong activities that are capable of not only destroying you, but also destroying the community. So that is how the focus of an average Muslim should be. Peace, no violence. Don't cheat. Don't harm anyone. Don't hurt anyone. That is the preaching. And masjid, our mosque, are the platform. Every Friday, you see hundreds of thousands.
Are they being used effectively? Are they being used effectively?
Well, that is relative, Yusuf. That is relative.
Well, I mean, look at the society. I mean, for example, you've been with organizations where the concept of the so-called mosque tour, the open day, where people from different faiths and communities come together and basically worship. But look at the facilities at a lot of these mosques for women. Non-existent. We have a situation where you have a non-egalitarian setup. It seems to be solely a man's domain. Women have absolutely no role to play in terms of participating in the structure and the setup of the mosque. We obviously know there's no obligation to attend, but that is totally lacking in our societies, in our communities, in our mosque structures. And you have situations where, I mean, I've seen probably last year sometime, where women who wanted to read the Taraweeh prayer were sent away because of the fact that this is seen as a solely exclusive domain. This is inherently problematic, and we can't say only some. The vast majority are involved in this kind of behavior, which I find inherently problematic. What do you say as a propagator, as a missionary, in your capacity in addressing some of these issues?
You see, such activities, that's what gives credence to most of the misconceptions that people have about Islam. They feel probably women are being suppressed, they can't hear their voice, they are not allowed to worship. Of course, if there are facilities, we should make facilities available in the first place for women. During the time of Rasulullah, women come to his mosque. Some of them, they even ask questions from him. If you are trying to say the way women then, the way they behave, the way they dress is quite different from the way the people of nowadays are dressing or behaving, that's another debate entirely. Make the facility available for them. You can shield them from the full glare of the entire members of the congregation. But they too should have a say, should have a participation. If you don't educate your women,
is that happening? Is that happening, Doc?
I've seen some mosque, even a masjid at what do they call this? Morud. We have facilities for women. There's a facility, there's a room that women can come in and pray. But of course, maybe not on the Juma day because of the space there.
It seems that everything is a taboo in our communities. I mean, Amina Wadood, you've heard of her, Amina Wadood. She was, I'm not sure, I believe she addressed, I think she may have come to Durban University of Technology, I'm not so sure, but she apparently addressed a forum at the University of KwaZulu-Natal. But it seems to me that anyone that maintains controversial views or ideas or has certain opinions, albeit strongly held, that is always viewed as a taboo in society. We don't allow debate in our communities. We don't allow questioning in our communities. I mean, the kind of debate that you and I were involved in a few weeks back within a church, that is basically looked down upon as negatively within the Muslim community, because there is this perception and this idea that interfaith engagement on this particular level should not occur. What do you say about that?
Yeah, I am always in support of interfaith engagement and discussions and debate. Peace is very critical. Most of uprisings are as a result of misunderstanding of values and virtues of the other faith, of the other cultures or ethnic group. So if I have an understanding of your belief, your faith, what that it does, what that it don't, even if I'm not an adherent of your faith, at least I can respect you because I want respect from you too. That is why I don't go to destroy your sacred places or what you call your places of worship or whatever. So interfaith engagement is always very, very, very critical.
Why is this not recognized as important within the Muslim community?
Well, the conservatism that you have mentioned are part of the challenges that we're having. If anyone is coming up with the idea, let's dialogue with him or her. It is left for him or her to take what we have discussed or to reject it. But it doesn't stop us from dialoguing with them. Rasulullah take his dawah to as many people as possible, to as many communities as possible.
But there needs to be a consensus created, consensus within religious leadership on that issue, on other aspects, point of opening our facilities, being more open, being more transparent, not just in terms of the way wealth operates, the way some of our zakat organizations in fact operate. It leaves a lot of questions to be asked and leads a lot to be desired in respect of that.
I think things are evolving, Yusuf. The issue of this open day, or what do you call this, mosque, open mosque day, whatever, it wasn't in existence before, right? It's people that came up with that idea, and some people reasoned with them. Okay, let's do it. Even if, of course, some people are still not interested in that kind of an idea. But things are evolving, things are changing. You don't expect an absolute and 100% change immediately. Things are evolving. People are learning every
How long
day.
should we wait?
Well, I can't say.
I mean, I've seen the situation. I mean, as a child growing up in this country, you've probably been recent, but the trends are taking very slow. There needs to be a shock factor. Galvanization sometimes needs to occur. Otherwise, this perception will wait 100 years from now. If we are still alive, we'll be having the same conversation.
What the degree might differ. The degree might differ. The extent might differ. That's what I was trying to point to you.
Well, I just want you to hold that thought, but we have to go for an ad break. And when we're back, we'll explore some other issues. Don't go away. We'll be back shortly. Welcome back to I Beg to Differ. And if you joined us, we are in our segment discussing the issue of dawah and its impact and how we could be propagators and missionaries in society, not just to outside people, but within ourselves. Doctor, when we went for the break, there's something I wanted to ask you. Commodification of dawah, commodification of missionary activity. Do you see that as an inherent problem? Let me expand what I mean by this. Evangelicals have made religion into a big business. Do you see that happening within the Islamic worldview?
It is somehow alien.
But don't you see the idea of the so-called professional Muslim where, you know, a Muslim's faith is the source of his livelihood? The fact that he identifies himself as such becomes the source of his livelihood.
To the best of my knowledge, it's not common in Islam. It's not common, and it is not always encouraged. You can't say because you're a Muslim, you've got no any other source of income, livelihood that you are getting sources of income from. Then you have commodified religion, as you have said it. That gives rise to a lot of games, hanky-panky, that could be played in a way to the extent of you trying to extort people. You trying to lie to people, to extort them, to let them believe and continue to come to you. It's not all that common in Islam. And if it's happening in some instances, you see the Muslim community trying to rise against that. We don't allow such community to grow and to expand. And we do respect, that is...
What would the difference be? Are you saying that within the Christian community, this kind of quackery or religious mumbo-jumbo whereby you've got these spiritual con men, you know, people spraying doom at individuals, talking to God in heaven. Is that very common? In your country, Nigeria, that's exceptionally common. You've got this guy who's the head of the church that collapsed. What's his name? Help me out.
Synagogue.
Not on the synagogue.
TB Joshua.
TB Joshua. It was TB Joshua.
Yeah.
What TB Joshua as a person, I mean, as an individual, and the kind of brand of Christianity that he represents, do you see that as inherently problematic? Why have Nigerians bought into that phenomenon so passionately?
You see, I was trying to mention that commodification of religion is not as common in Islam. You see the Muslim Ummah community trying to rise and fight against that. Unfortunately, that is not what you see in other faiths. And with due respect, you've mentioned Christianity. We've got to be plain and be truthful. It is very, very rampant today. People set up churches, worship places in their own name.
And they're not qualified ministers.
Whether they are qualified or not, that's not even the issue now. What they do is to extort and exploit the congregation. Throughout the world now, the richest pastors, out of the top 10 richest pastors throughout the world, I think about 6 of them are from Nigeria.
6 from Nigeria.
Thank you.
And you talk about multi-millionaires or multi-billionaires?
Some of them they are personally owning aircraft. They own aircraft. Why the member of the congregation is struggling to pay his bills, to pay his rent.
Where's that money coming from?
Well, they extort people They get money from
So it's tithing. Tithing is significant.
tithing, asking people to donate money. Religion is an emotional thing.
Religion is emotional. It's big business as well.
I am telling you, they are milking people dry. People refuse to come to their senses. That there is no sense in you paying a tithe where you are struggling to pay your rent. Pay your rent first. God knows your condition.
But they're paying the tithes first.
They pay the tithe first.
And the corrupt religious leadership know the situation of those on the ground.
And they patronize them.
In what way?
They patronize them because religious places, worship centers are where people gather, are where you can market leadership, politicians to them. This is the direction you should go. They market the direction they should vote. They take it upon themselves, even though some of them, they visit politician houses. They don't hide it. In forms of trying to set
your political leadership has been problematic over the past few decades under Sani Abacha and so on. I mean, but they've kind of sustained, they've allowed this kind of religious leadership to flourish.
You see, I was trying to mention something last time. Nigeria, we were rated as probably the poorest nation in the world. Poverty index there is so high. So high, there's no doubt about that.
The poverty is very high.
It's very high. Unemployment is competing with that of South Africa too, 23%. So you see a lot of people trying to make ends meet. People that cannot afford to go to hospitals, they go to worship centers in the name of miracles, trying to seek miracles. And the politicians are cashing on this. They know that is where you can get a large number of people at any point in time, and because of the volatility, the emotionality of religion, they listen to their bishops.
What is the nexus in between the political leadership and the religious leadership in Nigeria?
Well, to the best of my knowledge, it's just for their own benefit, for the two. For
Works both ways. It
for
works
the
both
mutual
ways.
benefit of them. It's for their mutual benefit.
Their role and involvement in South Africa, because a lot of these Nigerian ministers and pastors are in fact coming to South Africa, and they've got a massive support base. I mean, TB Joshua has fans, South African fans, despite the havoc he caused in Nigeria.
Accident can happen anyway. I'm not trying to say building collapsing is common in Nigeria, and that is part of the weaknesses in structures. Structures put in place to monitor all these things are not doing their work. So today it might be mosque, today it might be church. It might be residential building, it might be companies. That's another topic entirely. But let me tell you, Yusuf, that Nigeria is such a big and rich country in terms of talent, intellect. Nigeria exports Christianity. And that's why I'm saying there are many pastors abroad.
So I say that there are missions that are leaving Nigeria, coming to Africa, coming to South Africa.
In the name of spreading the message of God.
What about the American evangelicals in Nigeria? Are there a lot, or are they not in so much of a dominant sphere?
See, the religion context in Nigeria is quite different. It's difficult to have a large number of people just following you verbatim. There are competition even within these so-called churches. There are competitions. The churches are trying to compete with each other. Okay, how do you explain the situation? You are a church, this thing is registered in your name, in your family name. If you die, it's either your son or your relative that takes over. You're trying to run it like a business. You have schools, you have universities that you set up in the name of the church. The son of an average congregation or member of the church cannot attend your school. What sense does that one make?
It's a contradiction in terms.
Contradiction. So that is why we say they are milking people for their own betterment.
So do you see missionary activity as fundamentally capitalistic based?
That is how I view it.
How deep is this in Africa?
Well, I'm talking about Nigeria.
I was looking at the system and the process of contextualization. I'm not so sure if you're familiar with this. In Senegal, in Dakar, some years back, where you had missionary outfits were building churches and structures and in the form of mosques. And of course inviting people. So when a person enters a church, he'll think he's entering a mosque, and then obviously he's being preached to. But the problem is that it creates a form of assimilation whereby there is no cultural dislocation between his now new faith that he's being introduced with and his own culture. Is that common in Nigeria? You haven't seen that.
That is not common, and I think.
But you've heard of that. You have heard of that.
I watched the video. I read.
Mali, parts of Senegal.
That is deceptive.
Deceptive missionary outfit.
That is deceptive. Let me remind you this. There was a Muslim guy. I don't have the full story. He wanted to go and collect an hadith from some other guy from another location.
He wanted to collect an ID.
An hadith.
Hadith.
Yeah, that he had, that Yusuf has an hadith, for example, about a saying of the Prophet, about something. He traveled thousands of kilometers. When he got to his house, he saw this guy at a distance, trying to draw the attention of his goat. He put some sand in like a carton, and was trying to fake those livestock to come for the food. But what was inside that carton wasn't food. So he wanted to arrest the attention of the livestock. When this guy who has traveled 1,000 kilometers to come and collect that, when he got to him and he saw this particular behavior, he said, no, whatever I did you are giving me cannot be authentic. You can frame it up.
I mean, it's basically manipulation.
In order to satisfy your own
particular let's come back to the South African perspective. Because I don't want to go too afield to Nigeria. I understand that you are Nigerian, you've got some affinity with that. South Africa, do you find missionary activity prevalent and something to be looked at into? Or have you in your on the campus, is that very common? Do you have Campus Crusade? Do you have other outfits? Or is religion kind of waning away into oblivion?
Well, in some instances, in some locations, you see programs. But Yusuf, I ask you, religion should have meaning in your life. Religion should touch your life. Religion should make you a better person.
And if it's not touching your life, you should get rid of it.
Religion is not about dancing, singing, fashion, costume. That is not religion.
Sure.
But you see that is what is being told how to be.
Being told, and then basically taking people down the abbeys of destruction.
Going to music concert and going to some religion centers, there's no difference.
Same thing. They become centers of iniquity.
Fashion, cosmetics, music, dancing. That is not religion.
It's a false sense of spirituality. We'll look at that further. We have to go for an ad break, and we're going to be back shortly, and we'll wrap up the segment. Welcome back to I Beg to Differ, and we are in our final segment discussing the whole role of propagation within the Islamic context, and obviously looking at other forms of missionary activity, particularly from the Christian evangelical segment of society. And with me in the studio is once again coming Dr. Abu Yemi. Welcome back. Youth is a fundamental problem in our society. People are complaining and talking about this all the time. The lack of spirituality within youth, the fact that youth are now captured by so many facets in society, albeit social media, popular culture, entertainment, the spiritual element is somewhat lost.
Yeah, the youth, they constitute the future of any nation.
And the future is falling away.
Yeah, so and from an Islamic perspective, we are expecting the youth in South Africa and everywhere around the globe, the Muslim youth, to stand up and be counted, be identified with your religion, be active in your religion. No violence, no one is asking you to spread violence. Islam is always about peace. Don't go for drugs, don't go for anything capable of soiling your reputation. Alcoholism, drop all those. Gambling, all those things are not helping you. You should be focused.
Are the challenges too huge?
The challenges are too huge. And you see, we address all these things right from the family unit, which is what is very, very critical in South Africa. The family unit is very, very critical. Mother, father, children. We should look into that. The mother is the first teacher for the children. And the home is the first university. If you don't have a united home, what you can call a family unit, you cannot have a stable nation. You can't have a stable city. Families, that is where morals are being taught, values are being taught, virtues are being taught.
Why is the family unit different now than what it was 10 years ago, 20 years ago? There must be something that happened. I understand popular culture entertainment has reached epidemic levels, but what specifically has sparked the decline in the family unit?
I think the cultural disposition of people too are affecting this.
Is our culture different now?
Well, the way people, the way they reason, the way they think, the way they behave, especially when they leave let me call it their farm or their location. Someone in the city, the way he's behaving, the way he's dressing, what he or she is doing, smoking, taking weeds, might not be happening in his own farm, in his own village. So, and that's why we said the family is very, very critical. The way you raise your kid, if the kids are not properly raised within a family, okay, imagine a situation, you've got a woman, there's no husband, she's just living her life that way. She's raising children. Of course, there's already a gap.
Single motherhood.
Single motherhood. I don't want to dive into feminism. You have this boyfriend, you have this boyfriend, your children, your kids are watching. Family unit is very critical. That is where you take.
And that's basically which is leading down to the breakdown in society that we see here, the criminality that we see here.
A lot of the guys on the street is because of the broken homes.
Should dais and propagators become more involved in terms of the political process in the country?
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's not happening. That is not happening. They're operating in isolation.
Absolutely, absolutely. Any dahi, any Muslim cleric, what is name, should always speak to the power that be.
But that doesn't happen. That does not happen because inevitably the discussion's relegated to purely theological discussions. I mean, it doesn't make sense going to a rural area and debating the crucifixion for that particular man. I mean, there's a time and place for that. Or, for example, seeing a situation where the leaders are oppressive, the situation is oppressive, the socioeconomic environment is oppressive, and you're operating in a bubble without looking at the context of the society in which you're operating, because the prophet and prophets were social agitators of their time. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I agree with that. Your dawah activities should be contextualized. You look at the environment and what are the socio-economic challenges, the cultural challenges that you think you can address, especially those ones that does not augur well, not only in terms of faith. We are trying to build a peaceful community. Both non-believers, both Christians, both Muslims, both traditional worshippers, everyone will benefit from a peaceful community.
What should our relationship be with other communities, be it with the Christians, Hindus, Buddhists, and so on?
Very, very peaceful.
Peaceful, but
Very
beyond that,
peaceful.
isn't there a common ethical paradigm that all our faiths have, which we can tap into to deal with the corruption within society?
That is what I mean by you speaking out. Speak out. Speak truth to the leadership. Speak out. It might be very bitter. It might be very painful. But when truth is being repeatedly said, not only by you, even by others, we are having a milestone in that particular direction. Speak truth to the leadership. Let them know where they are doing well. See, I believe...
Is there fear? Do we have a fear on leadership? Do we fear political leadership?
They are relatively.
The religious bodies fear political leadership, don't they?
Relatively.
Why?
Well, that's why I said...
There's a threat, there's a fear of a threat that will probably our interests will not be looking after?
Some fears are inbuilt within yourself. That certain things, privilege that you are probably looking up to might be taken over from you. But if you are the type that doesn't care and you don't look up to someone for your survival, and that's why we talk about the commodification of religion. If you have your own job, you're an advocate, you're a lecturer, you're whatever, and you still practice your deen, You have sources of income that can sustain you. It doesn't stop you from saying the truth. But if you've got to go cap in hands to be begging politicians, to cap in hands to be begging leadership in government or wherever,
that's what happens. That's what happens when they beg political leadership. Then they basically are in a position of compromise. So as opposed to you speaking to them, what's happening? You see what goes on. They invite politicians. What happens to politicians? The politicians speak to us. You see that the largest mosque in the Southern Hemisphere, we don't speak to the politicians. We don't give them advice. We don't give them Quranic means or the methodology of guidance. It's the other way around. And we allow that situation to happen. That's my problem.
Yeah, and it's a very huge problem that we need to look into, we need to address. When politicians, when they come to our masjid, we should be able to allow even members of the congregation
to question them, to challenge them. See, does it happen? Does it happen? When King Goodwill Zwelithini came to the Grey Street Mosque, you were there. Were you there? He actually came. I mean, you had leaders, politicians. The same corrupt elite within the municipality many times came to our mosques. No challenge was given to them, no questioning. It was a talk down. We invite them, they talk to us. That's not what we're supposed to be doing. It's the other way around. We should be talking down to them, not the other way around.
You see, I believe in constructive criticism. If there are things that they are doing fine, let us applaud them. Let us acknowledge them. There's nothing
Nobody denies that.
But we should also criticize them constructively. Take them into account. What is happening about this one, you need to explain to us. What is happening about it, you need to question them. During the days of Prophet they are questioned. You ask questions in the masjid. When Umar was the caliph, they were questioning him. There was one of the Sahaba that raised up his hand and said, Umar, why did we share some pieces of garment or clothes? Yours is much than our own. He was questioning the so-called president, the Amir Mu'minin then. So it doesn't stop us. We should create that platform. They should not just come and talk to us. Why we should do it in a constructive way as not to spread it.
So there's no constructive way. At this point in time, there's nothing constructive happening. You agree?
Well, to a large extent.
That's a reality. Nothing constructive happening.
To a large extent, we should be able to be talking to the power that be, to make them to rise up to the occasion, to address things. You shall look at this issue of xenophobia that we're talking about. When they visit our mosque, those are the kind of issues we should raise. Unemployment issues, what is happening? We should question them. The moment you are taking up the position of leadership, you know you are the slave of the people. You are not even their leaders any longer.
You're a servant of the people.
You are the servant of the people. We should be free with you. We should be free and ask questions from you. That is what it entails.
Taking this further, what's the future? What future should we chart out for us as da'is, as propagators? What future should we chart out for us?
Well, I would advise we still continue to strive.
Struggle. It's a perpetual struggle.
Continue to strive, continue to struggle. Keeping quiet is not helping situation, it's not going to help situation.
Speaking out against injustices in our own communities and outside.
Everywhere. Speaking out about injustices, speaking out about rape, speaking out about alcoholism, speaking out about xenophobia, Afrophobia, speaking about hatred, anything that you think are antithetical to common sense. Anything that you know is not going to promote good, peaceful coexistence in community. Religion of Islam is not a religion that you force on people. No faith should be forced on anyone. All of us, we should dialogue, but we should have a common focus, which is peace. It is when there is peaceful coexistence that every other thing thrives. You can't do businesses when the condition is not stable. You can't do businesses. You can't school when the condition is not stable. So all of us, as I've mentioned, we are from one source, which is God. God created every one of us. We are from one source, which is Adam. We are generation and generation of Adam. You're my brother, I'm your brother, you're my sister. That is how we should relate. No hatred. Sure. Don't hate anyone. Spread love. Spread peace. Let your morals, your character, your virtues, the way you live your life, let it be an example. Let it be an example to people. Let it be the dawah. Let it be dawah that you are doing. Let your interaction, relationship, your conduct, good moral conduct, let it be the dawah that you are doing. The talking is just underneath. How you conduct yourself, how you spread love, how you spread peace among people.
I want to thank you, and I want to stop you on that positive note, Dr. Boyemi. It's good to have you again. We hope to have further engagements with you in the future. And if you've just been watching us, we've been discussing the whole aspect of Dawah and how do we operate within the multicultural society we find ourselves in. Join us next week for more hard-hitting debate and discussion on a number of other issues as we bring you and get you to the bottom of the story. Till then, Assalamu alaikum and greetings of peace.